Hark the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests.
Episode 148, Thorsten the Troglodyte Vermin Rancher. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Britt Anderson's table in the Levitating Platter. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, the best unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast, in my humbly biased opinion. I've got an amazing guest for you this week, this month, rather. And before I get to my guest, I have to do it. I have to leave you in suspense with the ad read. This podcast is brought to you by Plus One EXP and their brand new RPG Zine Club. It's a golden age of indie and small press RPGs. For the last several years, Plus One has made it our mission to help new indie creators and small press imprints get their products onto tables worldwide. Our highest goal is to create more sustainable and equitable pathways to getting games made and played. Now we want to take on our most ambitious project yet with RPG Zine Club. What is RPG Zine Club? It is a monthly membership subscription service featuring fresh zines from emerging and expanding creators across the globe. It's our way of inviting GMs, players, and zine lovers everywhere to invest more intentionally in the creative community. It's crowdsourced support without crowdfunding. Now, what are some of the features you have to look forward to when you join the RPG Zine Club? Well, you've got monthly releases with 20 to 44 page saddle stitch zines. Take your pick from story zines, adventure zines, or get both kinds. You can get print and digital or digital only of your favorite titles. Join the Clubhouse Discord. It's a section of our online community for club members to discuss and play new titles. Get the best prices guaranteed. You can select your frequency of how often you'd like titles, and you can get what you want and only get what you want. If you miss a month, there's no worries there. You can add recent titles to your month's order and get an annual surprise each February after your first anniversary. Get access to special content, including interviews, how to play videos, and special content for Zine Club titles. Do you like free pizza? Fill out one of the RPG Zine Club passports and redeem it for free pizza at events. You're going to get to encounter new and known designers. We source the best voices from across the RPG design community. We curate zines based on community interest and feedback to help you discover your new favorite creators. We are DIE focused. Plus One is committed to champion diversity, inclusion, and equity in our projects. Creators with diverse experiences make our community better. Zine Club prioritizes creating equity for all of our creators. And it's more than a purchase. Your subscriptions will let us invest more heavily in our print partners and provide them with potentially life-changing support by consolidating scores or hundreds of purchases as the club grows. So, if you want more details, please be sure to go to the website rpgzine.club. And this all can be found also by going to the website plus1exp.com. On that website, if you're making a purchase for a beard balm, a lip balm, beard RPG, or whatnot, and you're looking for a code to use at checkout, be sure to use the code Randolph, RANDOLPH, and save some coin on your purchase. Again, the website to get the discounts from me and provide a kickback to me to help support the podcast would be plus1exp.com with code Randolph. And be sure to go and check out the brand new rpgzine.club. All right. And without further ado, I turn the microphone over to my guest and I ask, hello, mystery contestant. Would you care to introduce yourself? Tell us who it is that you are and what is it that you do?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So my name is Britt Anderson. I go online by the handle BrittaJJ26. I'm an artist. I've been working in games, entertainment, social media, and animation for about 9 years now. And you've probably seen a lot of my fan art
Yes.
across multiple places on the internet.
Yes, now that it seems to be, I don't know, for me personally, I don't know how it is for everyone else, but now that Twitter has done its whole thing and really kind of put a damper on the TTRPG sphere that's been online. And there's other places that it's gone to. There were a couple that they were experimenting to, but I don't know. For me personally, I was kind of always one to stay away from Instagram because I was like, what's a podcast going to do on Instagram? But just it seems like it's really, I don't know, intuitive or easy to pick up. And it just seems like I'm spending way more time on it. And that's how I found your account. And then recognize like, oh yes, the fan art of like, Critical Role pieces, or even Worlds Beyond Number, which is a podcast that
Mhm.
I've really been finally able to binge. And I'm now concurrent as you are. So I know earlier today at the time of recording, you were like, oh, I've got my new plush of the fox while I'm listening to the newest episode. And I was like, "Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it was some riveting stuff this past episode."
Oh, so much. So much is happening. Ugh. So excited to draw all of it. Oh my gosh.
That's the kind of enthusiasm that I would hope to encourage with this podcast as well, where someone listens to an episode and they're like, "This NPC character, I must sketch them. I must put something out into the world for them." Not that I require it, but one podcast host can hope and dream, I suppose.
Mhm.
But cool, yeah. If I recall from your bio, you've worked in a couple of different areas and companies and projects and things that we would recognize your artwork from. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I've been a couple places. So, first professional job out of university was actually as a character designer at Marvel Animation for a few years.
Ooh.
That was really fun. I had a great time. I actually worked with a couple people that I knew from college there, so that was great. And then right in the middle of the pandemic, I was hired by TikTok and worked there for about 4 years where I did animations and filter design, illustration, graphic design, animation. Just I kind of did a little bit of everything with them.
Mhm.
And then I kind of wanted to start leaning more into the work of board games and TTRPGs. And right around the time when I was thinking about a transition, Dice Throne was looking to hire some more artists. And I was the first artist outside of their solo artist, Manny, at the time
Mhm.
to join. And I was also the first woman to join full time at Dice Throne. So that was kind of cool. And that's where I still am.
Shortly after this recording, the current administration's rise in tariffs led to Britt's role at Dice Throne being eliminated. She's now searching for her next career opportunity.
Since I moved to LA in 2019, I've been doing freelance illustration on the job, which is how I met Eric Ishii and email met Abria Iyengar. We haven't met in person, but we've
Sure,
done a lot of
sure.
projects together and a bunch
Right.
of other people. So,
Wow.
yeah, my career has been a little all over.
Well, it's just one of these days. It's inevitable. It's
Yeah.
inevitable. Abria's gonna just show up at your house and just be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Yeah.
I'll be like, "Oh, great. Come in. Let's have some tea. Here we go." Like it's bound to happen at some point.
That's very exciting. I know my only Marvel sort of claim to fame with this podcast is early on. Trying to make a long story short, my dad was friends with a gentleman named Dave McDonald, and they go back to their junior high days. And fast forward, eventually Dave goes on to become an editor at Starlog magazine, which is apparently a big sci-fi magazine that was really big back in the
Mhm.
70s, 80s, and all the way up through the mid 2000s. And so through that, I became, Facebook friends with Dave, and I really would love to have him on because I'm sure he would be a fascinating guest to have. But I know he's like, I don't know about me, but I do happen to know, William Murray, who's the co-creator of Squirrel Girl. So I've had Will Murray on the podcast as a guest. I'd really love to get in touch with him again and
Oh.
have him come back and return and just see how life has gone, especially since Squirrel Girl is kind of in the zeitgeist right now because of a certain popular video game.
Yeah, she blew up and I love her. I think she's great.
Indeed. And so when you worked at just, because I'm also a Marvel fan myself, you said you worked at Marvel Animation. Were there
Mhm.
any characters that were your favorite to get to work on?
Oh, cross-eyed moment there. I worked on so many. Um, I worked on seasons 3 and 4 of that show and some uncredited things on, I believe it was the Guardians of the Galaxy animated show at the time. I did a lot of stuff for the lady characters because I enjoy drawing very beautiful women. So I
Mhm.
drew a lot of outfit alterations and special poses for when we had Miss Marvel on there for a bit. A lot of Black Widow. Any villain that was a woman usually came across came across my table. But one of my favorite things to do was in the animated shows when you have the main characters going through the action and then you have incidental characters in the background that don't have a speaking role.
Mhm.
My favorite thing was when they would go, "Hey Britt, we need some incidentals in a science lab." So then I would take like a sheet of 20 to 30 employees, people that I actually knew at the studio, and then would just draw them as characters in the background.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
my friend Jess Cuff, who is a storyboard artist at Marvel, Flying Bark, Netflix, a whole bunch of places, she got redrawn a couple times as characters. And there was one episode, I don't remember which one it was, when they traveled back or possibly forward in time to cowboys riding dinosaurs as horses. And I was a saloon girl in one of those episodes in a purple dress. So if there's a plus
Ooh.
size blonde haired bimbo kind of looking woman in the background of a saloon somewhere, that's me. Because at the time I had bright blonde hair and very big makeup. So
Ah.
if you look in the background and you know people at the studio, you can usually spot who your friends are. You're like, oh, there you are.
I know that there is a documentary or a film or movie that came out, and it basically the premise was it had to do with more like live action and the background actors. And so I know when I was young, I would recognize certain I would you are a background actor, you're someone who's been in a lot of stuff. And so this sort
Yeah.
of speaks to that idea of like, if you're an animator and you can just draw like your friends in it. And then the real sleuths out there are like, wait a minute, that person in the background of this cartoon, they look
Uh
very
huh.
familiar. And then there's like a whole the meme of where they're drawing the
It's Pepe
conspiracy
Sylvia.
map.
It's Pepe Sylvia. And you go through, it's like a big, funny, cute conspiracy theories when you get to draw your friends and family and fellow coworkers into a show or into a comic.
Mhm.
It's my little teeny favorite piece of animation lore that just happens every time. And I'm like, yes, I love this. I love this for us.
And certainly with the 4-year-old son who, continues to astound me day by day with what he knows and what he learns and what he's able to like absorb. I
Hmm.
certainly would love to sit down with him more for more of these Marvel animated shows and be able to like, watch and then see and try and find your name in the credits. So that'll give me something to look forward to do. And then with Dice Throne, certainly for
Yeah.
anyone in the audience not readily familiar, and apologies for me, maybe not readily recalling to mind, but what is Dice Throne one of these like? Is it a dice company, or is just does the name throw us off to what its true
Ooh.
origins and intentions are?
Dice. So Dice Throne is a board game that uses dice rolling as a mechanic
Oh,
to activate cards to activate abilities. If you want to really think about it, it's kind of halfway between a traditional board game, but also a collectible card game. We're kind of in this unique niche in the middle where
oh,
we're like kind of a collectible board game.
interesting.
Yeah, that's the best way I can think to explain it. It's fast and easy to set up. It's fun to play. There is a surprising amount of, it's not skill, what's the word I'm looking for? Being tactful and having a plan. There's a word for this. I'm losing it. It's right on the tip of my tongue.
Strategy.
Strategy. Thank you. There's a surprising amount of strategy that goes into the game once you get to know the characters, but it's
Mhm.
also very age friendly for a very large swath. I think the youngest that I know of children who play this game is about 6 or 7. So they can start pretty early with some easier grade characters and then graduate to more complex ones as they get a little bit older. But all of the heroes across all of the games that we've come out are completely cross compatible. So you could have our barbarian from season 1
Mhm.
fighting Miles Morales, and they cross different dimensions and can fight each other, and it's great. And I get to play it pretty much whenever I want at work because that's part of our
Nice.
job is playing the game. So it's great. And I love looking at Manny's art. A lot of people are receiving their Marvel and X-Men back Kickstarters that they backed in the past
Ooh.
like year or two. They're receiving them now. Friend of mine, Ice Cream Sandwich, just got his today. So
Oh, there we
we were
go.
like
There we
kind of
go.
celebrating about that today. It was great. Yeah, I was one of they hired me about 11 months ago to help with art and new heroes and some other projects that I can't talk about because NDAs are a thing.
Sure, of
But I'm
course.
really excited about all of the stuff we have lined up over the next couple of years. So
So
it's
certainly as
exciting.
someone who's an outsider, I mean, this feels like how I've seen, some reels or memes on Instagram or some of these other places. The one comedian who talks about like, oh, I have my cow and I activate my cow who activates my cheese lord and who does this, who can search the deck and find the Limburger Meister or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So, the idea with like, Magic the Gathering now it
Yep.
seems like has definitely gone out into these branches of like, getting the licenses to agree. So now we can make Lord of the Rings cards or Fallout cards or some of these
Hmm.
other things. And so your hybrid collectible card game, but also board game,
Hmm.
sounds like it's, doing the same thing, but you've got your original fantasy stuff, but also sounds like with you and even outside of your influence, bringing in the Marvel stuff, and you've got NDA, so I can only imagine what other sorts of cool characters and stuff will find their way to the game.
There's all sorts of things. If you're familiar with another game that's very similar, Queen by Midnight by Darrington Press
Oh, okay,
functions pretty similarly. So
okay.
they have new heroes that we call all ours are heroes. Theirs are like queens and royalty,
Hmm.
but it's basically a collectible card game slash board game,
Cool.
and it's just a lot of fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I have some 3D printable characters of them up on my shelf that I can't show because they're currently in production. But
Ah.
once I
Well, it's
can, then
so
I can post
tragic
about
for
it.
you podcast audience. This is purely an audio medium. So if I really wanted to twist the knife, I would just be like, "Oh, you can show me," and then I'll just cut around it in the
Oh,
audio, and no one. Ooh, ah, ooh,
ooh,
oh, yeah.
ah.
Well, we're having a great time. We're working our way through the questions here. That I think it'll be pretty easy to answer this next question. But
Yeah.
do you currently, or have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons before?
I have. I've been playing for several years. I'm not the best at playing full casters because I started with a barbarian and stuck pretty close to non-casters for a while because
Mm.
the concept the analysis paralysis of here's a giant book of spells, you can only prepare a certain number of them a day and you have to be tactical about it. So then I became everyone's worst nightmare by going, okay, but what if I was just a half caster and caused chaos that way, because then I just know my spells. And I love my one of my current DMs is my roommate. They put up with so much of my antics and I love them for it. And I'm pretty sure they love me for it, even though I make their life a living nightmare sometimes with my very chaotic characters. But yeah, I've so far played Barbarian, Bard, Warlock, Ranger, Monk, Druid, Cleric, and Rogue so far.
Wow.
Yes, I'm currently working my way through playing every class in the main 5e first,
Hmm.
and then wanting to delve more into some other things like Daggerheart and Thirsty Sword Lesbians and a bunch of other niche TTRPGs as well. So,
Okay.
hoping to be in more
Yeah,
games soon.
that's way more player character classes that you've played than me, because I started back in fourth edition and I had a human wizard who was my main guy that I used. And at one
A
point I
glass
made
cannon.
yep, and I made a Charmind. I made a Charmind. Basically, he was like a psionic guy, so it was like just another step over.
Oh.
Yeah, the Charminds, yeah, from the living astral gate, or the living gate in the astral sea. I don't know, those were a cool
Yeah.
thing that were in fourth edition, but didn't make their way to fifth, unless there's some plan that they've got for 2024 5e rules. So there was that, and then I came to fifth edition, and I've played a couple different ones, and I especially am fond of the MCDM production third party classes that they've made. I played an ill rigger, a hobgoblin ill rigger for a hot minute there, which was fun
Ooh.
for a game or two. But yeah, no, that's cool. That's awesome. So you've got to play a lot of D&D, and you get to make a a lot of fan art as well of other famous
Yeah.
characters, of witches and wild ones and wizards and all that too. Yeah. And
My favorite.
Amy
Oh.
Carrero's character, I've seen the two ones where it's just like her regular and then the one with like the
Yes.
extra arms. I am woefully behind on season 3. As I mentioned, did you know I had a 4-year-old? So when
Yeah,
season
you've had a lot to do.
yeah, I remember distinctly when campaign 3 was like premiering, my son, like we had just gotten our house and my son was like a
Wow.
couple months old. So it was still like oh, I have to go back into his room. And so I just lost momentum. And I know that they've wrapped up, and
Hmm.
as Britt and I have been speaking, today is the actual official 10th anniversary of Critical Role today. So, kudos
Amazing.
and cheers to them. Happy hearing this episode in May, but at the time of our recording, it's here in March. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I just didn't get the momentum for season 3. But hopefully now that it's wrapped up, and they're going to be teasing out and letting you wonder what they're going to be doing next. But yeah, maybe it'll now be my opportunity to finally binge that podcast on the
Catch up.
drive to work. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I need to catch up myself on the most recent EXU that they
Ah,
did. So I'll probably be catching up on that whenever Worlds Beyond Number goes on their next scheduled break for a little
ah,
bit. Because I
okay.
know that's coming up. I just don't know when. So when they do that, I'll hop over there, catch up there, then come back.
There we go. Well, with this
Yeah.
podcast, we are called Sidekicks and Side Quests. So we like to ask,
Hmm.
some very interesting and deep, thought-provoking questions. So, Britt, do you happen to have a favorite NPC or non-player character, whether they be from RPG, video game, movie, film, television, etc.? And why is this character your favorite NPC or sidekick character?
Gee, I wonder which one is one of my favorites. Not me holding the fox plushie with his little fish for the fish slurry. Uh,
Hmm.
he's absolutely one of my favorites, and he became one of my favorites in, I believe it was episode 9, when Ame was having a particularly difficult time with, like, oh, people can always catch me if I do the selfish thing that I want to do instead of doing the thing that everybody else wants me to do. And he kind of gave her a little pep talk. It was actually a scene that was recently storyboarded by, I believe her name was Danica. I'd have to look it up again for the official Worlds Beyond Number account, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a couple other characters, that one is at the foref of my mind. So I love Indri, mainly because she's like an even more refined mean girl Regina George, but like also a witch. And I she's cool.
Mhm.
I love Grimoire because she leans so far into the, is she actually human or is she other weird kind of monster fusion? And
Yeah.
I just love a strong woman, big muscly woman who could kill me, like, to be perfectly honest. Love it. Critical Role themed, Marion Lavore, or for those who don't know her actual name but know her stage name, the Ruby of the Sea, is my favorite NPC of any live play ever. I've drawn her, I think, about 8 times at least, and I've got at least 2 or 3 more that I want to do. I like her so much. She's the main image on my business card.
Ooh, there
The
you
fan
go.
art that I did. And then from A Court of Fey and Flowers, I just loved the cameo of Jeremy Renner. Not actual Jeremy Renner, but
Ah,
Abria playing Jeremy Renner flirting with Lou Wilson was just so funny. I couldn't
ah.
I could not. I'm trying to think if there's other side characters that I really love. I uh I love Thumberchod from the D&D movie, but I love the fact that instead of going with terrifying athletic dragon, they went with fat dragon that's been overstuffed with food
Hmm.
that he rolls around like a fat corgi. I just I love. And basically the entire cast of the Iron Giant.
Ah, there you go. There's a
What
deep cut.
Iron Giant Treasure Planet is my favorite movie
Ooh,
of all time.
yes.
So much so that I'm showing on camera, so unfortunately you guys can't see. I have a film accurate, functioning Treasure Planet map that sits on my desk that I play
Ooh.
with while I work.
Oh
Lights up
man.
green and everything. Um, but Silver, Long John Silver from that movie is probably my favorite NPC or side character of all time,
Yes.
bar none.
I love the whole vibe of Treasure Planet.
Oh,
Early
yes.
early 2000s, and I think I got my DVD copy of it probably when I was in college. So, and I entered college in like 2006 or so. Um,
Hmm.
Going back and watching it now, and certainly, with 5e and the Spelljammer coming out, how much I
Yep.
can look back at Treasure Planet and just be like, oh yeah, they must have been into Spelljammer or something like that when they were making that movie, and I take so much inspiration from there because basically a one-on-one campaign that I'm running with a good friend of mine. We just do it all on Google Docs back and forth, but she started out
Nice.
as a astral elf bard from
Ah,
Spelljammer, and so like we took very much that vibe and I'm just thinking, you said Long John Silver, and immediately I'm thinking of when you first meet him in the galley and you're watching his robot arm like switch between different things. He's making the stew,
yes.
and I'm just like, dang, that guy's cool."
He's so cool. Those early 2000s animated films where they just kind of really got experimental and tried some new plots, new ideas from the late 90s to the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s was a real interesting time in animation, and it holds a certain fascination. I think it's cuz early 2000s me, what was it? Treasure Planet came out in 2002. I was
Mm,
14. Yeah, and then by the time I saw it when I got it on DVD,
mhm.
when I was 15, I was the same age as Jim. And I was
Oh.
just coming off of about 2.5 or 3 years of being obsessed with Star Wars. So I
Ooh.
was still in my Star Wars era when I saw Treasure Planet, and it completely took over my personality. I wrote so much fanfic for it when I was younger. I drew so much fan art. It's everywhere. and and but like Iron Giant is another one of those. Atlantis is
Yes.
another one of those.
Oh,
Just all
yes.
in that same era. I love even like Tarzan and Mulan, like
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah,
later
yeah.
Disney stuff
Mhm.
and your other DreamWorks pieces. So
Yeah.
Road to El Dorado, Prince of Egypt. And if you look at the work that I do, it all feels kind of like an amalgam of all of those mixed with a little bit of Bruce Timm designs from Batman the Animated Series. Like they all
Ooh.
smushed together and became an amalgam that's pretty close to the Legend of Vox Machina style.
Mhm.
So by the time that came out, I'm like, oh, I'm in my element. Here we are. Oh, come to me. All of this great stuff.
And of course, I have to give a shout out because I remember being a kid when it came out in the theaters, and I don't know if Disney has had a more awesome animated movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh my gosh. I have the art book of that somewhere over in there. Uh, I was obsessed with it because I'd never seen a film that somehow made a building have so much emotional impact on a person
Mhm.
watching it. You can feel how the cathedral goes through longing and emotion and happiness and rage at the end, and it's so transformative. I was
Mhm.
like, whoa, this is amazing. Some artistic peak happened in that movie, and
Mhm.
I love it. Chef's kiss.
And certainly have had the privilege of going myself back on my study abroad trip, and getting to go to Notre Dame, and I went to two masses because I was like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
I haven't. I'm studying abroad. I haven't been to mass, so I better go to mass. And I was like, international mass. Surely that'll be in English, right? No, that was in French. But I went to the Gregorian mass, and that was beautiful too. So just hearing all the Latin chanting, and it's still
Mm,
like a weird. It's an interesting thing because you'd have the tourist. They'd be relegated to the outside looking around, so there'd be like a general din sort of around you, but yet you'd be in
mhm.
this holy sacred moment in the interior, and there's the altar, there's the rose window, and all these things, and it's just, yeah. And then you see the movie, and you've got
Wow.
Esmeralda singing, God help the outcast, and it's just so good.
Beautiful. My
Wonderful.
gosh.
I feel like we're two kindred souls, and this podcast could go wildly in many different directions, so I'll
It
attempt.
probably could. We should probably rein it in a little bit, but I'm having so much fun talking with you. So,
Good, good. Um, well, to keep those good times rolling, as well as
yeah.
to get to the other side of the coin as well, do
Mm.
you happen to have a favorite side quest or B plot element? Again, the same sort of criteria, whether it's from an RPG, video game, movie, film, television, etc. And why is this B plot element or side quest your favorite?
Oh gosh. I don't play a whole lot of narrative video games. And I watch a lot of films, but when I watch them, they're more for entertainment than for like plot analysis.
Hmm.
The closest thing I can think of right now, and it seems kind of silly, I play The Sims 4 for
Okay.
fun on my own, but I don't play it the way it's intended. I play it to build replicas of places that I have been.
Oh, okay.
So I have built my parents' home that I grew up in my whole childhood, like exact replica to a T, as close as I could get it without doing a lot of like custom content or hacks or downloads.
Hmm.
And there's just something so satisfying about it. I think it's because when I was younger, I showed a real aptitude for architecture and reading blueprints. And early on, before I told my parents I wanted to be an artist, that was my creative outlet. Until I was like, well, no, I actually want to make art as a. I love architecture and I can read a blueprint pretty well and I can navigate through that,
Hmm.
but I really want to just draw stuff for my day job. And then if I want to do something with blueprints and maps, I can do that on my own. So I like building those things for fun. I don't. Sims, you're supposed to actually play the game with the Sims and like do things with them, have them go to work, do jobs. I'm like, nah, 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 nah. Let me try to rebuild the Sistine Chapel for like 7 hours and
Ooh.
have multiple screens up over here to my left between my phone and my laptop
Mhm.
of interior shots of it so I can try to build something similar and then go, huh, I did that, and then turn it off and walk away. It's not a side, it's the closest thing I can think of to a side quest that I regularly engage in and I find supreme amounts of joy in. And
Yeah.
I don't know why, but to me it's incredibly satisfying. So
Well, I mean, if it's a situation where, if I recall, again, talking Notre Dame and the cathedral and everything, when the big fire happened, and like everyone was like, the whole world was shocked, obviously.
yeah.
Um, but I think, if I recall, Ubisoft, because they had done Assassin's Creed, the
Hmm.
Assassin's Creed that took place in revolutionary Paris. They had all these scans and stuff for the cathedral, and so I can only think in the situation of like, oh, you recreating the Sistine Chapel, if there was nowhere else in the world where they're like, we need some sort of facsimile representation of what the Sistine Chapel could possibly look like. Let me boot up my copy of Sims 4, guys. I've got the Western art world saved.
Yeah, and I've got, a Pinterest board about 1,000 pins deep of snapshots that other people have gotten or artistic renders. Because I also have a very extensive private Pinterest board that is filled with so much reference for drawing and anatomy and
Oh, sure.
props and homes that there's a lot in there. You have to scroll pretty far to find a lot of stuff. So.
Wonderful. I love that answer. That's a great answer. So don't let anyone shame you and be like, that's not a good side quest or B plot answer. Like, no, that is. It's a great, fabulous answer. And then the way that we round out the personal interview section of this episode of this show, of this podcast, what are you passionate about and why?
I'm really passionate about maintaining the integrity of artists in this world where we have a lot of AI that's being introduced into the creative process that is not only kind of harming the environment with so much of the energy that it takes to even run the AI simulations and the calculations and to get those results, but it's also creating a lot of job creep on a lot of people where studios and other artistic endeavor places are laying off a lot of people. And then instead of hiring people to take their places, they're either replacing them with AI or placing those responsibilities onto others, which is creating a lot of burnout. So, and because I know a lot of people that this directly impacts, including it was starting to happen to me a little bit at a previous job that kind of prompted me to change careers. I just want to see people who are creatives and artists who want to do this work that should be able to do this work and earn a living wage. So a lot of it seems like a weird, boring answer, but it's like, no, I'm very passionate about making sure that people who want to do this work can do this work and are able to do it. And part of that is between unionizing and supporting protests, the peaceful protests in that, and hopefully people are receptive to that. Yeah.
Well, I can certainly remember, it seems like it's been, maybe it's just because of being a parent and like how time works now in my life, but it's like it
Yeah.
was only a couple of years ago, really, when some of these first big things like Dolly and some of these other ones started coming out. And there was
Yep.
a bit of like novelty with it, with the idea of like, oh, I just want to see like a lobster in a top hat on a tricycle. And it would
Yep.
just like do its best attempt and it would be like, haha, that's funny. But yeah, definitely with some of these other ones as they've come along, and everyone makes fun of the fingers and all that stuff, or like some of these weird specific niche things like you have to keep telling the computer to get more ridiculous or exaggerated or just like things washed out or the filters or whatever. Like you said, you did filter work for TikTok. So
Yep.
it's interesting, seeing how far it's come and, these stories of people that are like, oh yeah, I just used an AI generator to write a children's short story book and then used AI art. And then I tried to make it and sell it on Amazon. And it's like, really? Like that's what we've come to.
Yeah.
If you had an idea, we could have worked with someone and like, made a really good book instead of just trying to game the system to like, I know times are tough for everyone and like everyone's
Yeah.
trying to make a little extra scratch, but it's like, at what cost, man? At what cost?
Yep. At what cost? And as someone who has professionally there was a point where I was doing a job, and I'm being very general here, where part of my responsibility was taking the AI generated assets, and I was given those, and they're to by people being like, fix whatever's wrong with it. So I'd have to sit there and painstakingly go through and analyze and be like, okay, this person's got 7 fingers and there's another hand coming out of their chest. Well, okay, let's fix that. oh, their eyes are looking in two different directions. What's going on with their teeth? Like, and to be honest, it took way longer and much more time and energy put into fixing those mistakes, quote unquote, so they didn't look like AI, quote unquote,
Mhm.
to then it would have been to either just use stock images
Mhm.
that are there, or taking the reference photos yourself, or having an artist draw something. So that the integration of AI in a lot of creative fields is also
Mhm.
something that I'm passionate about trying to put a cap on a little.
Mhm.
Just, but I know that's a very hot button topic with a lot of people. A
Sure.
lot of
I
people,
think I
but
think there
yeah.
is I think there are kind of like right ways to do it and wrong ways to do it, certainly. You know, it is a tool, it is a thing that has been developed, and I think just lately a lot of untrained people, or like people who don't have, like, the technique or the eye or the vision, like, like you and other great creatives. Like, I could see it being useful if you're like, I know I'm gonna draw this, but for whatever reason, I'm just like, I've got something on my mind. I just can't picture it. Okay. You go to like some sort of prompt thing and you're just like, I just want to see like what a pirate captain lady would look like where she's like in a swashbuckler pose. And then you have it generate that image just so you can get some ideas. And then you're like, great, maybe I use this as like a pose, because you're looking through your photos or your references or whatever, and you're just not finding something. So, do you think there's like a good ethical way for an artist to be able to use an AI thing like that, not to use it as the final
Mhm.
product, but like something along the way as like a stepping stone to be like, okay, I have the idea, and then like, I don't I don't use Adobe Photoshops or the art programs. I know you can do like layers of filters or whatever. It's like what
Mhm.
I would know like as a kid, like, oh, here's a cool comic book. I'm gonna put a piece of paper on it and I'm gonna trace it, and then I'm going to work on it for my own. You could do layers like that, where maybe you could be like, here's this weird, not great looking pose thing that I want to use, but now I'm going to draw my take on it. And then, like, okay, now more of my vision and my artist eye, my training and my expertise comes through. And now I can make this thing look like how I would see it, thanks to that stepping stone that I had.
I think I do understand where a lot of people would see the possibilities of using it as a tool to be able to generate images. To me, part of what makes being an artist so great is you get to take your lived experience and things you've observed and things you think about and create something out of them.
Hmm.
Uh, and if I wanted to do a swashbuckling pirate that was riding an astral dolphin with like a robotic astral dolphin with jetpacks and that produced like some type of bubbles or something,
Right.
uh, is I would the first thing that I would do is I'd be like, okay, so I kind of know what pirates are about. I kind of know what a dolphin looks like. I've seen a few of them. I know what mechs look like. And part of what I love doing is finding reference of things that inspire me to be like, ooh, well, I love Treasure Planet and I love the way his mech looked in his arm and the pistons that they used. So maybe I want to lean this way with this dolphin and I'll do and the path of exploration of looking through my Pinterest boards, my art books, the thinking back to movies that I've seen of like all sorts of things or reading comics like Lore Olympus, kind of start depositing pieces of ideas
Hmm.
in the same way that like someone be like, oh, here, I'm just going to feed all of this stuff to a program and give it 2 minutes to spit something back out. And while you might get something cool out of it, there's a disconnect for me where it's like, oh, well, something else made that. That's not me. I just told
Ah.
something to do something. Part of what I love is, and what I think I see in a lot of artists that really kind of move me is, and like a lot of like you said, you love the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Mhm.
That film was made by a lot of very talented, skilled people. that were inspired by Victor Hugo's novel, that were inspired by the grandeur and the feeling that you get of being in that building. There is a life and there's a life and a rawness to it that comes out during the creative process that when you automate that, it kind of, there feels like a disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so to me, when I see people using AI art for something, to me, it's like, so you, if you really wanted to create something, you would do it. You wanted to create a podcast, you've done it. You've met with people, you've talked to people, you've gotten people's stories, you've created this beautiful, wonderful thing, but you did it and you collaborated with other people that worked on you with it. It's deeply personal and it's very real. I feel the same thing when I'm working on stuff that I create. And when you cut the person out of it and it just becomes mechanical,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of feels like cutting the umbilical cord off and being like, yeah, we don't care about people. We just care about the result.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment that you cut people and their connection to things out of the equation, what's the point? If it's to create a cool looking image, all right, cool. Do you want people to connect with it? Or do you just want something that looks cool?
Mm.
And but yeah, that's just, I feel my heart kind of going a little bit because it's like, you care so deeply about this thing. I'm like, I know that is also not the entire point of this podcast.
No, that's,
But
I
you
mean,
asked what I was passionate about. I'm like, well,
yeah,
here it
no,
is.
that's good. Yeah, no, I mean, I have, I have some limited access to, chat GPT with my job. And so, if I use it, I'm using it because it's like, it's like, hey, I need, what was that thing again? And so I'm basically treating it like a search engine. Maybe a couple
Mhm,
times I'm stuck on something and I'm like, give me like a list of names for something. And then
mhm,
it's good, but I'm still or I'll use it to mash things. Like I did use it for D&D with my player, for example, because I just didn't think I could do it justice because I knew I knew I needed like an NPC cleric, but then I was like, I know I'm picturing that this moon elven cleric looks like and sounds like Werner Herzog because that's just the idea I got in my head. But I was like,
yeah.
he has a very particular way of speaking. I know I've heard other comedians do impressions and I've heard a few interviews of him. So he has this very stark, bleak sort of way of speaking of like existential things. And I was just like, there's no way that I can do it justice unless I just shorthand wrote like, oh, he says something like existential and deep or whatever. But I did use that where I was like, I gave him some like, hey, these are the kinds of tenets that they believe. And like, this is the saint he follows. And this saint is the patron saint of these domains. So if he was going to speak about this topic, like what's a very Werner Herzog way of saying something? And so he came up with some really cool lines. And so I was clear with the player that I was using, like, hey, I don't use this thing as a
Yeah.
crutch all the time, but like, I really wanted something authentic sounding to come out, from like, a search engine thing that could go through like however many hundreds of hours of interviews or whatever that
Yeah.
Werner Herzog had done to make it sound more believable, which I think like, okay, that's cool. But after hearing your impassioned arguments for like you shouldn't use AI for getting your references. No, you should, take your pictures or watch movies or read comic books or live life and see it out there to find the human element, to have the connection with it. I'm just like, okay, well, that seems to maybe perhaps have swayed me in my answer. Maybe I shouldn't use even my little mini access to programs even a little bit. I should just, oh, okay, well, I guess I really got to think how this character is going to sound, but yet I specifically want them to sound like Werner Herzog, but I don't know how to make them sound believably like Werner Herzog unless I just go into the deep end of watching a lot of Werner Herzog movies and things that he's interviewed and done. So, all right. Well, it sounds like we've done a killer job here in the first half of the show. That now I think it's time to head into some NPC creation.
Woo!
And NPC creation is brought to you by you, our patrons of the podcast and our audience of the podcast. Thank you all so much. So now is the time of the show where we give a shout out to our comfortable patrons and above with a loud hurrah. So to you, our queen of the Patreon, Katie Downey, aka Goblin Katie, as well as our other wealthy tier level patrons, Anson Jablinski and good old mom and dad, we say cheers. I've got my can
Cheers.
of Dr. Pepper Blackberry, which is a very interesting soda flavor, and
Ooh,
it's not bad. It's quite good. Uh,
nice.
so yeah, these fine folks donate at least $2 or more a month, and they get a shout out on every monthly episode that we're doing this season. But all these people that I named are at least wealthy tier, which means they get to introduce an element of chance to our random
Ooh.
tables. So we might get to hear some of their responses used today. So if you want to learn more about the Patreon, you should just go to the show notes below, go to the podcast website, or just go directly to patreon.com/sidekicks and side quests to find out more about the accommodations that we have awaiting for you within the levitating platter. Help us to grow and expand our operations in this demiplane and worlds beyond. And then there's Ko-fi. Ko-fi's a thing, and I promise I'm going to do better about catching up on Patreon. But there we go. There's the spiel for that. So, okay. We're now in the part where we get to make up a character. I believe before we started rolling, you said you had your Caduceus themed dice for today, and you were
I do.
ready to roll.
I am
Okay,
ready to roll.
excellent. Okay, so as you've listened and you kind of know how this works now, we're going to use the whole standard array of dice, and we'll just go down the line asking the questions, rolling the dice. If you're not feeling something, if you want to re-roll, that's totally fine. Or if you want to use that as your springboard, and then you're like, oh wait, no, I have a better idea, and I'm going to run with this tangent and go with it and see it's as far as I can go. Then totally we can do that too. So
Okay.
the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is going to be the name of this character? And if you get your D20 at the ready, we can go ahead and figure
Got
it
it.
out who it is going to be.
All right. Rolling. We've got a 7.
Lucky number 7. Your answer
Mhm.
was provided by previous guest Max Giacchino, Thorsten, which is spelled,
Thorsten.
yes, Thorsten. Thorsten.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thorsten. Love it.
And then the next
Okay.
thing we roll for is the ancestry of the character. So this is where we get to do a 2d10 or a d100 roll.
Ooh, percentile die. Here we go. What do we got? We have 83.
83 as I scroll down the list. Okay. Troglodyte.
I might have to ask that one because I don't think I actually know what a troglodyte is.
Troglodytes live in the Underdark. They have an aura of a stench about them. They're kind of like nasty guys to fight in the Underdark. If you're feeling that,
Oh,
or if you think Thorsten might be something else, like I said, I'm free with the with the rerolls. Maybe earlier guests are like, wait a minute, no, I lived by the dice and I died by the
oh
dice.
no,
But
I'm gonna live and die by these dice. We're
okay,
gonna do it.
okay, so Thorsten is a troglodyte, and
Mhm.
I'll make sure I pull up those details as well on my end, because you know what? The last troglodyte that we made was with our previous guest, Jonathan Bearded Blevins. So it's been a little while since I've read up on troglodyte, so it'll be good for me to brush up as well.
I'm also looking it up currently, so I can be like, ooh, okay.
Okay, and then let's
Ooh.
see, what's going to be the job or role in society that Thorsten is going to
Ooh.
have? This you just get to roll a regular D10.
D10. Okay.
Correct.
A 10.
Aha. Your answer was provided by a previous guest, owner, operator, client, lover of games, Tony Vicinda of Plus One EXP, Vermin Rancher. So Thorsten
Vermin Ranch.
is a vermin rancher.
Please tell me he's got a bunch of guinea pigs. He gotta have guinea pigs.
Perhaps.
Guinea pigs are little. They're vermin. I'm calling it. He's got a horde of guinea pigs.
And then the next dice we get to roll for, before we take a small pause on the dice rolling, what's going to be the age range of Thorsten, the Vermin Rancher? This you roll a d8.
D8. 2.
Teenager. So Thorsten, the Troglodyte teen, who's a Vermin Rancher. So with these details in mind, when you picture Thorsten, who's a troglodyte, who's a teenager, but he's also a vermin rancher, what sort of picture is coming to your mind? You're going to get ready to find all your references. You're getting ready to sketch him. How are you going to
Oh yeah.
sketch Thorsten?
Oh, so I'm seeing a lot of troglodytes. They almost kind of built like tanks. They got big barrely chests and the long claws. And I mean, if you're caring for guinea pigs, they're just these cute little guys that when they walk around, so cute. As a teenager, I feel like he hasn't quite grown into his barrel chestedness yet. He's not
Mm-hmm.
quite full grown. So maybe he's a little bit more on the scrawny side before he's fully matured.
Okay.
And there's just something so charming to me about he's in the Underdark and he's got all these, but then you've got these, he's just, when he walks around, he's got like this trail of guinea pigs that will follow him as he goes.
As someone who's finally gotten a Xbox Series X and downloaded a copy of Baldur's Gate 3 and now working
Uh
on his very first playthrough with Duncan from the podcast, getting to see the Underdark depicted in that game has been very fascinating and interesting. Just seeing all the darkness, but yet the vibrancy with all of the underground mushrooms. So now I'm just picturing like
yeah.
if I'm exploring Baldur's Gate 3 right now, and it's like, oh, there's troglodytes over there, but then I just see like a guy walking, and then this whole herd of guinea pigs following after him. Like that you don't see every day. I saw 2 minotaurs earlier that were hostile to me, but this guy, there's something different about him.
I mean, vermin can be all sorts of things. It could be, you could have rats, you could have mice, you could have some weird D&D fusion of like, I don't know, a chicken and
A cockatrice?
yeah, you could have like you could have a cockatrice, you could have I don't know, maybe chickens are also fused with guinea pigs in some cute way. And uh I mean, vermin tend to be kind of on the small side. So it
Sure.
makes sense to have just herds of these little guys and following around and burrowing and such. And they're all
Yeah,
very
'cause
skittish. So when something flies overhead or they're out from under the underdark, then they would like want to hide in tall grass. If you ever seen them
mhm.
out in the wild, if anything flies over, one of them sounds an alarm and they all whoop go right into tall grass under things. So being in the Underdark would be great for them because there's no sky predators. They'd just be out and everywhere, munching on clover, like whatever undergrowth plants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be cute.
Munching on some mushrooms or something like that. Hopefully the
Yeah.
non-hallucinogenic kind.
Hey, maybe I would say maybe those mushrooms are hallucinogenic to other folks, but
Oh.
to them they're not. Maybe that's part of the farming and ranching, and a part of their culture is like, yes, we have a crop that is this mushroom
Mhm.
that we feed these animals, but also can be used as spell components and other things that are used to make trade with people possibly on topside. Who knows?
Very
You come up
true.
with a whole society built around this.
Yeah, so Vermin Rancher, there's kind of an interest. I'm from Texas, so it's like, yeah, cattle ranching's like, big out here. Maybe not immediately here around in the Dallas area. You'd have to go to Fort Worth for more of the cattle stuff. They do have the historic stockyards after all. But it seems interesting to think of how exactly this rancher culture fits in. Is it like Freetown in the Underdark? And then, these are like the troglodyte ranchers who didn't ascribe to normal lore written down.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm imagining for them right now. I There's nothing I love more than bucking a little of expectation. So when someone's like, oh, wizards are always this thing, it's like wizards are frail old men who are glass cannons. I'm like, okay, but what if there was a buff lady wizard that was like, could bench press a truck, but also was good at spells? And then we make her dump stat something else. Like her charisma is terrible, but her intelligence and her strength is through the roof. And there's nothing I love more than doing that
Right.
with characters, backgrounds, you name it. I'm just like, okay, but what if this?
And so we're imagining Vermin, and is this, obviously with ranchers, real life cattle ranchers, they are raising animals to be used in processing for consumption. So is it the idea that these vermin are being raised as a meat source substitute for these free peoples that live in Freetown that may be from disparate cultures and groups that have left their otherwise oppressive groups? So you've got like some drow, you've got some dwargar, you've got some other under Measels. You've got other Underdark people that are here in this town. Maybe even a mind flayer who left their colony and is like and again, like a magic-y guy. Maybe not quite like Clarota
um,
or the other guy
yeah,
that's
we
in
got a
Baldur's
melting
Gate
pot
3.
of
But,
people
you've got like a
in this.
a
Yeah,
mixing match,
yeah, we got a melting pot
fusion
of folks
bowl
here.
of people in Freetown. A melting pot, that's the word. And so they're raising, creatures that the people of the town and that they can, they can trade elsewhere for, for the meats or the
Yep.
or whatever it is. Uh or just hey, we got to feed the town. Mind Flayer still has to eat brains. I guess he can have guinea pig brains or whatever it is, whatever sort of vermin. Doesn't have to be, especially if you're wanting to avoid angering people with like, how dare you? It's supposed to be cute creatures.
How dare you with those cute creatures or capybaras or what do you do? And it's like the vermin
Mhm.
rancher. There's most vermin tend to be a little small. A lot of them tend to be. I mean, you could go insect or bird wise because there are some bird species that may as well be vermin too.
Giant rats. Not like tiny rats, but like giant rats.
Yeah, like ROUSs.
Yes. Yes, rats
They
of
could,
unusual size.
that. Yeah, it could be like, I mean, the nice thing about fantasy is that you can do the Avatar the Last Airbender thing where they took two animals and fused them
Yes.
together to make something unique.
The turtle ducks. Yes.
Turtle ducks, you have owl bears, you have all of these other things. So you
True.
could have so many different types of vermin. I'm just imagining he's got this herd of them that he's protecting. Maybe he's got a few capybara in there that like kind of stand guard and are just kind of hanging out,
Mhm.
enjoying the vibes. Maybe who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? I don't know much about ranching culture. I think is you're from Texas. My roommate is also from Texas, so they would know way more about it.
Mhm.
Uh, I know very little about it. I just know that the same street as me, we had neighbors that had cows, and I used to go play with the cows.
Well, my
So,
mother-in-law did in fact grow up on a cattle ranch, but up in Oklahoma. So the same
oh,
sort of
okay.
thing. But I mean, it
Mhm.
does take quite a bit of work to raise animals and to tend to them, to care for them, but also to get them ready for market and processing and all that stuff. And he's a teenager, and it seems like he's not on alone on his own. So is it like, we're imagining maybe this quote unquote reformed troglodyte family operation going on? Or is it just kind of like there's someone else who's the rancher, if you will, and he's like one of the teen workers
Ooh,
on the ranch, and they
I
employ
think it
like
might
a
be that.
dwargar or like some other people that then work the ranch.
Yeah, I think it's more that second situation. It's like a little work family that has gotten together.
Okay.
Not blood, maybe not blood family related, but you know, spend a lot of time with the people you work for and form close relationships with them.
Right.
Just a whole smattering of folks.
I was gonna say, like, on a scale of like how serious to ridiculous, or are we imagining like the more serious? And I haven't watched it, but I hear Yellowstone is like pretty hardcore, like intense drama on one side, and then you have a movie,
Mhm.
say like I don't know, like Billy Crystal City Slickers on the other end, where it's more zany and silly, or Dude Ranch. Or Hey Dude
Yeah.
was the Nickelodeon show where it was a bunch of kids on the camp, but the idea
Oh,
of
I
it being a
forgot
dude
about Hey
ranch.
Dude.
Yeah, Hey
Yeah,
Dude.
I forgot about Hey Dude. Woo, it's been a minute.
It's been a hot minute.
Uh I think it's ooh, I mean, it sounds kind of boring to say kind of in the middle.
Hmm.
Uh I tend to lean a little more towards the comedic and lighthearted slice of life
Sure.
situation with like the dashes of drama and action and adventure. It
Hmm.
explains why I like Worlds Beyond Number so much, or a lot of the Dimension 20 shows,
Yeah.
kind of in the same vein.
Hmm.
There's an undercurrent of there's drama, but there's plenty of lightheartedness on top of it.
Of course. Okay. And okay, so we're getting the picture, so not full bodied. So obviously it's the Underdark, and I know we've been talking about ranching and stuff like that. They don't literally look like, hey, I've been plucked out of Texas, but I'm a lizard sort of guy living underground ranching vermin. Or is it just sort of like, you know, I don't know. Does he adopt any garb or clothing? Because I don't think troglodytes technically have to wear clothing, or like, maybe like some sort of
Ooh,
uniform, or tool belt or something that's going to help him with ranching, maybe. But I don't know.
yeah.
Any other notes that you might have for this teen rancher, if you will?
Ooh, I think the Teen Ranger would probably have some kind of long staff with netting at the end of it, similar to like, the pool skimmers to
Hmm.
get things out of the pool. Because if you're in the Underdark and you have some cavernous places that things can fall or
Hmm.
get to, most vermin they can kind of handle themselves and get back up. But there might be every once in a while where like one falls down somewhere and you have to get down in there to get them out. A lot of crags and crevices. So the very typical like shepherd's staff, but
Hmm.
there's like the hook at the end that has like netting or something to be able to scoop up something that's like if one or two of them have fallen somewhere and they need to get them out. I do imagine him wearing some kind of like some kind of tunic covering,
Okay.
not necessarily with a hood. I don't think he
Hmm.
would necessarily need that, but
Like a poncho.
yeah, something like a poncho or like a Rana situation similar to what I've got on, where it's just this long drapey thing. I
Okay.
don't necessarily see him as being completely just creature nude, naked.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that.
Natural.
He's natural. Yeah, I feel like the long drapey poncho or Rana, and then like how those like wrap harem pants are. They're still loose enough
Hmm.
that you get plenty of movement. And there are some designs where I've actually designed these as pants for a character before, where uh it ties in the front and ties in the back, but there's like an overlapping seam that allows for a tail to come out.
Okay.
So the clothing is kind of modified to be able to wrap around and not, if he has a tail, to be able to
It does
let
look
the
like,
tail
at
out to
least in the
use.
5e picture here on the Forgotten Realms wiki, it does seem to indicate that there is at least a tail.
Yep.
Let's see, description. Okay. Coated in rough leathery scales, possessed a grayish brown skin tone. Although they had the chameleon like ability to change their coloration, lizard like heads with males crowned with frills that extended from their foreheads to their necks. Black beady eyes struggled to see in the light, and their claws and fangs were obvious to those who saw them.
Yep.
So you were describing the clothes like maybe loose fitting, and I could just imagine as he's like, he looks, maybe the party sees him and he looks intense coming up, but then like beep 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 beep, like a bunch of little guys
Beep, beep,
start
beep,
like
beep. Start poking out.
poking out of his clothes, and he's just like, and he gives them a scritch, and he's like, howdy,
Yeah.
how are you doing? Kind of a thing. So all right.
Yep.
And so, with as well as this physical description that we've kind of worked to build up, we also like, for role playing purposes, to try and narrow down the character as well with like 3 adjectives. So if you had to describe
Ooh.
Thorsten with 3 adjectives, what 3 adjectives would you use?
I don't know if this is good. The first thing that came to my mind was like himbo,
Hmm.
like Bolin from The Legend of Korra. He's just a nice a nice kid, kind of a little like intelligence is definitely his dump stat,
Mm-hmm.
but his wisdom is real high and his charisma is high because not because he's sly,
Mm-hmm.
but because he's kind of like he's a well-rounded kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing his job and he likes his little creatures that he ranches with.
Okay.
Uh so bit of a himbo. Uh
Okay.
I would still definitely say brave
Okay.
because part of your job as being a rancher and a shepherd of a flock is that there's usually some type of bigger vermin or
Yes.
predator that's looking to get at the flock that you're trying to guard.
Bullets.
You cannot take that job and not have some grit or
Yeah.
not have the chutzpah to defend them.
Hook horrors.
Yeah, so you'd want to lean on the side of like maybe a protector or brave. I would say more probably protector because
Mm,
he's not there to fight for fighting's sake. He's there to defend, keep his flock from harm from something else.
yeah. Yeah, bullets and hook horrors and the umber the umber hulks. Like, yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine like all
yeah.
sorts of nasty guys coming through the Underdark like, oh, like a bunch of little easy things that are defenseless that I can eat. And then like,
Now, pop, 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 pop.
Thorsten and the team and like I mean, well, I don't know, do they have on ranches, you have dogs, you have ranch dogs that'll be out there helping out. But I'm just wondering what's kind of like the workhorse animal in an underground, underdark vermin ranch, I wonder.
Giant
Maybe.
capybaras. I want them to ride giant capybaras. I
Okay.
don't know why that was immediate. I think it's because I drew a capybara that was the size of a Clydesdale once, and all I could think about was I want to ride it. Oh my god, that's like the best. They're like so chill
Hmm.
and they vibe. But then imagine riding one of those because they still have claws. They
Yes.
are still rodents.
And they are
They will still
semi-aquatic.
fight you. Yeah. So in the underground rivers, they would still be able to go around and do those things. So a part of me sees like they ride giant capybaras that will defend if they need to. They've got those claws that they can dig into somebody.
Right.
I'm not sure about what if they had like ranch dogs or something like that. I'm not sure. That one's kind of stumping me a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of what other creatures are in the Underdark. And I don't know a lot about it because I actually haven't been to the Underdark in any of my campaigns,
Ooh, interesting.
funnily
Okay.
enough. Yeah.
Well, let's see. Forgotten Realms wiki, of course, to the rescue. Creatures found in underground
Yeah.
locations. And let's see if there's just any of these that I can just scroll through real quick that seem like they would do the job of perhaps like a ranch dog. Again, of course, my current state of mind being heavily influenced by Baldur's Gate 3 at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
Hmm. I just see flumps, but flumps would not be very good ranch dogs because they only have 4 hit points. Although unless they try to chill, they could work as an early warning system, I guess. If like, hey, something weird's coming this way, so yeah, I don't know. You could get some interesting
Hmm.
creatures. You should let us know in the comments of this episode, wherever you're listening to it.
Yeah.
You should say
What
what
would the ranch
animal.
dogs be?
Yeah, what would the ranch dogs be for the Underdark? Perfect. Okay, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it up to the invention of whichever dungeon master is going to incorporate this into their game as to what that would be. So let's see. So we had himbo, we have protector, and then did we get that third adjective as well?
No, we didn't. Oh no, I'm having a hard time coming up with
Is there a
the
flaw?
third one.
Is there something that like eats at him? Like that's something else that he's like, again, going to the Yellowstone, it's like the drama or whatever of like, oh, there's the tragic secret or whatever I might have, perhaps.
Ooh, his tragic secret. Um,
Is he the only troglodyte in Freetown? And is there a reason why he's the only troglodyte in
yeah,
Freetown?
I think. Ooh, I think it might be a little. Ostracized is not the word I'm looking for. There's something similar to it. Ooh, yeah, because he doesn't have his family there, so maybe he's a little, not quite a loner, but he always feels kind of like on the outside looking in a little bit.
Mm.
Like he's a tiny bit of an outsider. Like he's still close with everybody, but I'd imagine if he is the only troglodyte there, he's probably seeing, I mean, you're in a melting pot of
Mm.
people, so there's a bunch of different people around you. But if you are the only one of your D&D race or back was not background, heritage versus everybody else, like maybe even the mind flayer has their family there with
Mm.
them, or there's or even if they aren't family but there's a couple other mind flayers but he's the only one,
Mm.
might feel a little isolating, so he feels a little isolated from others. Still a good
Okay.
kid, still a good thing. But if he's there by himself and there's no other troglodytes, what? And that is definitely worth remarking, and definitely an NPC that people would probably zero in on
Right.
in a game. It's just like you've got mind flayers, you could just, but there's a single troglodyte
Right. And
that
he's
is
a
over there
teenager.
tending to Guinea, a teenager. So he's not even a full adult tending after guinea pigs.
Mm.
And the players are like, that if that is NPC bait for any, if I walked in, it was like, oh, there's mind flayers, there's a couple drow, there's a few dozen physicists, and there's a troglodyte that's tending to a flock of guinea pigs. If you said that to me describing this town, I would immediately want to go talk to that one because I'm like, really? And you're riding a giant capybara. Done. You are my favorite character. Who are you? What's your name? What's your life story? Please join our party. Like
There we go. That's the magic.
immediately.
That's the magic of this podcast. We just make those NPC bait characters, I guess.
Yeah. Story hook characters. There you
Story
go.
hook. There we go. Get the hook right in there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now that we got our adjectives, we continue forward with the dice rolling. And so we like to give all of our
Ooh.
NPCs something cool on their person. So what's going to
Yeah.
be a valuable item, piece of lore, secret, or ideal or concept that this character would ascribe to? So we kind of mentioned a few maybe,
Ooh.
but we do like to deploy the dice rolls here. So this is a combination. So we do a D4
Ooh.
for the category and then a D6 for the particular thing.
Okay. So D4 roll. We have a 2.
Okay, 2 would be a piece of lore, and now you can
Ooh.
roll a d6.
D6. We have a 2.
2, 2. Okay, your answer was provided by previous guest, Leah Murray. Let's see. Thorsten knows the specific song to play on a pan flute that puts people to sleep.
I'm typing this down. Hold on.
Yeah. So what are you imagining this to mean? Like for Thorsten, is he a bit of a bard? Like, you know, if he, in D&D terms as like, oh, he would
Ooh.
be like the bard in waiting. But like because he's stuck on this vermin ranch, he can't really unlock his bard potential. But this one piece of
Yeah.
lore that he knows is like, I know how to play the song that puts people to sleep.
Yeah. I do love the idea of him kind of being a bard. But not necessarily a bard in the way that other people would expect. Like you have I use this in one of the characters that I've played, where I bring a little bit of my heritage into it. My family is Swedish. My ancestry comes from the Scandinavia. And when they herd cattle over there, they used to do something called culling, which is they would the let the livestock up into the mountains and up into the valleys. And then when it was time to call them back, the women would go out and they would sing for the cows to come home.
Mm-hmm. And is that where the
And
phrase comes from?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So and there's like not necessarily a specific tune, but it's because the woman's voice is higher, it carries over distance as opposed to a sonorous voice of a man that like can travel through solid things. So
Mm-hmm.
like that explains why if you're at a house party, if you've been at a house party, you can't hear the treble through a wall, but you can hear the bass. Dum, 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 but you can't really hear all of the other stuff until you enter the room.
Right.
but you can hear like an opera singer from like miles away because that pitch travels so far in distance.
Mhm.
So it could be that I feel like he's got this thing, it lulls, used this as pan flute. He knows the song that puts people to sleep, but he uses it for other purposes too. Not the tune, but the pan flute itself.
Is it for the guinea pigs? He goes,
Yeah,
and then the guinea pigs
yeah.
all come swarming.
Yeah, because like the herding dogs have key pitches and consonants and vowels that they listen for or commands to move in different ways. And if you want that sound to carry far, you want that to be a high pitched sound. So if he's got a pan flute and he can get that sound a higher pitch, the animals, whatever animals the commenters decide
Mm-hmm.
that are like the herding dogs basically for the guinea pigs, they would know he's giving them directions to turn this way and that, this way and that. And then he'll use his voice, which is deeper when they're closer, but needs to get through like a little cavern or something where there's rocks in the way and he needs his sonorous voice to carry a little further.
Mm.
Using science in D&D. Hey,
Yeah.
science and physics. We love it.
Yeah.
This is great.
Well, now I'm getting flashbacks to doing the cattle driving missions in Red Dead Redemption, where it's like, okay, Bonnie, we got to help get the cattle moving, and so now I'm just
Yep.
imagining him on the pan flute. He's playing that like a ocarina of time. It's like, quick, you got to hit the buttons the right time to play the song, and the all the guinea pigs start moving to one side or way to the other.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then, of course, he's doing that practically, but then he knows of like, oh, we're doing these drives, to get the guinea pigs to where they need to go to make sure they fatten up and stuff like that. And, oh, everyone
That's
just
why
can't sleep. And so he just figured out the song. Like if he just plays it and it's just like naturally everyone just sort of falls asleep.
I think that might lead into a bit of his backstory if that's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe because if troglodytes are typically seen as a monstrous race
Mm-hmm.
in D&D, which it sounds like they are, maybe there was a raid on their home or something, and in the bid to try to get out, I mean, he was young. He probably didn't know how to do a whole lot by that time, but he was good at playing the pan flute, and he did learn this one thing that seemed to help people lull to sleep. Maybe he tried playing that to get those that were threatening him and his family to coax them into a sleepful state so they could try to sneak out.
Mm-hmm.
So, like telling everybody, plug your ears after this time or sleep with a pillow over your head when these people are here. He's able to lull them to sleep. They start trying to get out. Staying asleep doesn't always stay. People can wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there was a scuffle and he was the only person that got away. He doesn't know if his family escaped or whatever. And he
Yeah.
found his new life here with these people. So
Yeah.
that gives you that little bit of drama and maybe a hook
Right.
towards the future of maybe he'll take up the calling and become a bard and leave his village to go do a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows?
A stinky troglodyte bard. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And then, of course, we want all of our NPCs to be able to give out cool side quests. So when the party
Oh,
meets Thorsten, what's going to be a particular quest that he'd be willing to recruit or hire the player characters to go and do? So if you want to roll the last dice, that's going to be a D12. Or if you're inspired, you can
ooh.
think of it or maybe mash the two, whatever.
Yeah, let's roll and see what happens. We got a D12, you said?
Yes.
All right. 12.
Ooh, okay. Well, you let me know if you think this is good. This was suggested
Okay.
by previous guest Steve Trinkle, my good fraternity brother, line brother.
Hey.
Tail their no good brother, sibling, family member, and see if they have fallen in with a bad crowd. Now, I know we talked about how Thorsten sort of has this found family with this
Mhm.
ranching group. So, do you think maybe if you took that and amended it slightly, tail their no good, you know, coworker, rancher, fellow person on the
Yep.
ranch, and see if they've fallen in with a bad crowd. Do you think that's something plausible that this loner, looking on the outside looking in, sort of a Vermin Rancher kid would care about and ask a bunch of player characters to do on his behalf?
I feel like it would depend. So if he's a teenager and he's a little bit of an older teenager, you're putting him maybe 16, like in human equivalents, about 16ish.
Sure.
I could see him doing that if there was like a younger farmhand that he's kind of helping to like, that's kind of a newer recruit,
Mm-hmm.
to be like, okay, yeah, come in here, I'll show you this thing. But he's been shirking responsibilities, or a couple of the guinea pigs, couple of prize guinea pigs or something like that have gone missing. Maybe that kid definitely did fall in with some not great people.
Mm.
And he cares because he's like, well, we're not blood related, but I have a fondness with this kid and I don't want to see him get into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But he also has responsibilities that not only does he have to do his own work, but the work that this kid has left behind by going off to do stuff is not insurmountable, but it's enough to make him go, well, I want to go help him, but now I'm overworked with two people's worth of work. I can't leave to go do this. Because if
Right.
I do that, then I'm shirking all of this work onto somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
and they all have their own stuff to do. So I think that could work.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna tail this new person in the ranch family and see if they have fallen into a bad crowd. So
Yeah.
certainly gives a dungeon master something to play with to figure out like what
Hmm.
that exactly means. So we get to the end of the quest, and the heroes are successful in their endeavor with the tailing. What does reward for success look like in this side quest? However, that is like maybe it is they prevent something bad from happening. They figure out the reason why this person's going off and not doing their job, and they come back and report to Thorsten. How is Thorsten going to reward the party?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like I really like the idea that he knows the music to play on a pan flute that can cast sleep
Hmm.
on somebody. And there's something neat to the wizard thing of like you learn a spell instead of just inherently knowing one,
Hmm.
that implies that magic can be a skill.
Hmm.
And it would be fascinating for someone in that party, whether they can cast magic or not, that can find a way to transcribe that music, or kind of give them instruction to be like, well, I don't know if this will help, but here's a piece of knowledge that I know that might prove useful to you.
Hmm.
It's not that necessarily that he has coin to be able to just throw at them like, oh my god, here, thanks for going to do this thing.
Right.
But being able to cast sleep on someone, especially if someone in the party wants that spell but doesn't have access to it yet.
Hmm. Like, there's not a narrative reason why they would have it.
Yeah, there's not really a narrative reason that they would have it, but there's a narrative reason why this character has it. And there is value in the exchange of ideas and knowledge in a specific thing. I mean, he could say, like, here, take some guinea pigs for the road, but I don't think the player characters are going to want to take a guinea pig to eat later.
Right.
Uh, but the knowledge of that, and then if they were to try to get to further into the Underdark, he
Hmm.
would probably be able to show them the way in which he got there,
Right.
because he probably had to come up.
Right, right. And for sleep, I mean, it does say it's a first level enchantment, and typically the bard, sorcerer, and wizard classes know that spell. So I mean, it
Mhm.
would be fun for like a bard character in the group to be like, oh, a piece of music, yeah, let me transcribe it. He finishes writing it down, but then is like, and, if it
Yeah.
affects enough hit points that eventually that character like falls asleep. 'Cause
Yep.
it'd be an interesting way, yeah, to kind of help contextualize like this is how you can know the sleep spell, because you know the song now that at least played on a pan flute of how it works, and yeah, and so Thorsten is this baby bard. He's not a full bard, but for whatever
Mhm.
reason, he just happens to know this one spell that he can do, like the one first level spell he can do, and then maybe he knows inadvertently a couple cantrips, but he doesn't he hasn't figured those songs out yet, or he doesn't think of them as cantrips. He's like, oh, I just play this little thing, and this, like, oh, I played
Mhm.
this tune, and then this is like thaumaturgy, or it's like the prestidigitation effect where like my voice gets like super loud. Like, oh, if I play it
Yeah.
this way, it's like I'm suddenly super loud. But if I play this way, it's like, I don't know, there's
Mhm.
like little sparkles that happen for I don't know why, but I can see that. Okay, so Thorsten's able to provide access to the sleep spell. Once you
Mhm.
transcribe the music, maybe you humorously have to save against the 5d8 of hit points that it affects. Uh,
Yeah. It
Perfect.
could you could also spin it narratively in a way of like if more than one person knows, and this is entirely for this is just me thinking experimentally about this. A song is going to have more of an effect if you start getting others that harmonize with it.
Hmm.
So if there's more than one person at the same time that sees their turn to cast sleep, they both successfully do it and harmonize with each other. Maybe that ups the level of D8s. So instead of 5d8, maybe it's 7d8 or it's 8d8.
I see. So you're thinking if other people like harmonize, or they basically use the help action, I guess, to help with casting the spell as well, if they know it, then that would be the same thing as if you're upcasting it. Because when you cast the spell using a spell slot of second level or higher, you roll an additional 2d8 for each slot
Mm-hmm.
above first.
Yeah. So it could be that like someone in combat could be like, shoot, or they're trying to sneak in, they're like, I can only do up to this. And they're like, but I can help you and harmonize either with the voice or with a second instrument or something. So
Mhm.
that kind of incentivizes the bard not to take it, but somebody who can learn to play the instrument or the music who is not a magic caster. And then it like, oh, okay, but because it's being both are being done at the same time, you can cooperatively cast a spell with somebody and get a greater effect instead of just one person doing it. I don't know. It sounds fun. I don't know if that's a thing. It sounds fun to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I don't know if rules is written in either the 2014 or the 2024 version would necessarily allow it, but you know what? If we're gonna homebrew,
It's
or
rule of cool
it's
here.
rule of cool here on this podcast, yeah, why not? Give it a try. If you can only do it once a day, then like it's not gonna hurt
Yeah.
anything too bad. So yeah, because I'm imagining Thorsten plays it himself, and he's like one of the people that's affected by the pool of hit points anyway. So he always naturally ends up falling asleep, and so he's not able to cast it more times because he's usually the one playing it at the end of the day, and everyone falls asleep.
Unless he puts his unless he cover like somehow covers his ears with like
Oh, right, because he's got the
something and then
watch.
plays it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Because he has watch, so he has to stay up. So he's probably found a way of like muffles his ears somehow
Yeah,
with like
cotton
his I
balls.
don't know cloth or something.
He sticks mushrooms in his ears that dampen it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're not the little iPods that sit in his ears, but they're like little white cap mushrooms that he
Yep.
pops in real quick.
But then the opposite has to be considered as well. What's going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to the adventure?
Oh.
So the players encounter Thorsten. He
Hmm.
gives them this lowdown of like, hey, this kid's supposed to be helping me. He keeps running off. I don't know what the deal is. I'm stuck with all this work. Can you go help me? The players say, no, kid, we're not going to help you. Or, they get involved in this whole plot of what the kid's doing, and the other kid comes to harm or serious injury, or runs off, or falls in with a bad crowd and disappears from the town, is like removed from the game because the choice was made that he ran off with the gang of desperados or whatever it was.
Oh
What's going to be the
no.
consequence of failure or that for Thorsten?
Oh. I don't know. I thought maybe that would be something we could roll for, but it might not be.
Is he going to be particularly disappointed in the players if this kid that he's taken a shine to like
Yeah.
becomes harmed,
Absolutely.
dead, or runs off?
He absolutely. I think he'd be very I think he would be very upset. I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of I mean, I'm not entirely sure of what a lot of the stuff that exists in the Underdark if they have taverns and things like
Sure.
that.
They've got to have taverns.
Yeah. Okay. So I was gonna say, like, oh, maybe staying at the ranch was going to be a place where they could stay
Mm-hmm.
free of charge instead of having to pay for a room somewhere, which
Ah.
seems pretty low on the rung of things. But this is an adventure I would imagine maybe happening kind of early on
Mm-hmm.
in an adventure,
Sure.
like before they hit their level 5.
Right.
So gaining access to a level 1 spell when they can already cast level 1 spells sounds good,
Yeah.
instead of being like, oh, I can cast level 9 spell and you're offering me sleep. Whatever. Because then they'd be more apt to like say nah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Thorsten would be very upset. Less so that like, oh man, now I got to do all this other work, and more like, but no, this kid that I kind of see as like a little cousin or brother, and like, if he's a good kid and the town, I'm not going to say the whole town rallies behind him, because you're always going to have some stinkers
Sure.
in every town.
It is Freetown after all. You are free to be
Yeah.
free from your oppressive overlords that you grew up with. But that doesn't mean you have to necessarily get along with everyone else's thing.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. This one kind of has me stumped a little bit.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, it could just introduce more, more negative social consequences in the town because
I
some of them will like
Because it's a
Thorsten,
kid.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably maybe more of them will be more inclined to Thorsten's position, but maybe the one oddball in town that's like, whatever kid, I didn't care for that kid because I don't care about kids or whatever. I care
Yeah.
about the whatever is in front of me right now, sort of a thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so could introduce some more negative social interactions. Maybe make you not as welcome in the town or something like that. Certainly, the ranchers
Yeah.
probably are not going to be very keen on you because you let one of
Yeah, giving
their
you some major side eye.
yeah. Okay.
Bombastic side eye.
And then and then yeah, depending on how it goes, I'm just again, I because I said it in ranchers and like Red Dead, I'm just imagining like suddenly sometime down the line this kid comes back with this gang of underdark desperados, and they're like roughing up the town and stuff like that. It's like, you used to be a good kid once, and it's like, yeah, well, working the ranch stunk, and it's like, this is way better now. Now you've created like a threat to Freetown because you've let this kid run off with the bad. And then, Thorsten's looking at you like, you could have prevented this, and now look at what we have to deal with because I'm busy dealing with the ranch stuff and this bad crowd, these evil aligned creatures just come to our town and run ramshot through it.
It definitely becomes Thorsten's origin story of becoming a PC later,
Mm,
joining up an adventuring party. Because I'm of the opinion that a lot of the NPCs you interact with, depending on how those things happen, you might be the impetus to their own, like, starting up of a campaign of those other NPCs joining an adventuring party, going out for adventure or
yeah.
whatever. Because what might not mean a whole lot to you can mean a whole lot to somebody else.
Right.
So, this sudden found family rivalry that's happened now that the brother has gone away and a couple of years later comes back is wreaking havoc. All these things are happening. The town gets busted, and now he's like out to eventually not avenge his brother, but like that's kind of his, I don't want to say personal demon that he has to face, but he's
Mm-hmm.
like, I need to go fix things with my brother so he doesn't become this horrible villain or for whatever reason. And then that's like that character's big bad they have to go up against, that
Right.
personal big bad, like Percy going up against the Briarwoods.
Right.
Not that dramatic, but
Right.
like, I gotta go do this now.
I have to go find 7 other magnificent heroes of the Underdark, and we're going to ride off and to go confront this gang of desperados in the Underdark.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's high. I was going to say noon mush. I was trying to think of some pun of like it's high mushroom. There we go. High mushroom. We'll meet you there, and we will see this battle out. Wonderful. Well, do you feel like
It's
Thorsten's a pretty well-developed character? Are you ready to head into the next section? I mean, there are optional questions,
yeah,
but I mean, I feel like Thorsten's pretty well covered.
he's pretty fleshed out. Yeah, and it's quarter to shroom, so I think we should
All
like
right.
let's go.
Well, without further ado, let's head into a random encounter. This random encounter is brought to you by my sponsor, Zencastr. How do I use Zencastr? Well, that's the service that I'm using right now to be able to record my episodes of the podcast. It's what allows me to capture it all, put it into my editing machines on my new computer to get it processed and put forth onto the interwebs and podcast land for you all to enjoy. I was able to take part of this service, all thanks to my buddies Benjamin Huffman and Dane Fox McGraw over at the Dispel Magic podcast. And if you were at this time in your life wondering what can I be doing, what sort of hobbies or things that I could be branching out to, well, I'm here to talk to you today about Zencastr. It's so easy. It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen. Knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. You can sound your best. Have you ever wondered what you might sound like? Well, Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically works to remove those filler words in your recordings, and it makes those awkward pauses in conversation dip out as well. You can set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. It's all in one, so if you've thought about podcasting before and realize that you need a lot of different tools and services these days in order to do a podcast, well, I can assure you that those days are done. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SIDEKQPodcast, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Again, go to zencastr.com/pricing, use my code SIDEKQPodcast, get that 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. Thank you so much for listening to this ad and for supporting the sponsor. It helps to support the show. And without further ado, on with the podcast. Okay, so now is the part of the show where we get to do a vignette, a scene, some role playing with the character we've made here today. So I think Britt is going to do a fantastic job with breathing a life to Thorsten. But the question becomes, who am I going to be in the scene? Am I going to be one of my podcast adventuring characters that comes across Thorsten to get the side quest? And am I going to be another ranch hand? And we're both talking about like, hey, where's the third guy? Where's he gone to? Or something with his backstory, or even the guy who owns this ranch, or I don't know. What sort of scene are you interested in presenting Thorsten in?
Oh, I don't know. You gave a couple different options. How many did you give?
Oh,
We've
it
got a
was
D4.
yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. We've got if you wanted to do one with the podcast characters, if you wanted to do one with another ranch hand, maybe one with the owner, or something with his from like a flashback backstory thing.
Okay, yeah. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. I got a D4 here. Let's see what happens.
Perfect.
Oh, we got a 4.
Ooh, okay, so something from Thorsten's backstory. So
Hmm.
what sort of scene do you think it should be? Is it going to be him like, like we talked about earlier, like him playing the song to like escape the attack? Or is it going to be something even, maybe like we fast forward past that point and it's him first coming to the town and maybe beginning the whole idea of like, oh, I'm the only troglodyte here. And like, who's going to take me in? And then like, the ranch guy comes up and is like, I got a job for you. And you look strong. You can come work for me, sort of a thing.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea. How old do we think Thorsten is when he first gets to this this town.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, if we're imagining him when the players meet him as the equivalent of 16, and we think of the idea of the movie montage or the backstory thing happening. So I could easily see like maybe he arrives at town when he's like the equivalent of like a 10-year-old. And then when he
Yeah.
fast forwards, it's like, okay, he's 16, he's been doing this a couple of years, and now he's like more settled and like actually cemented in the town.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. About 10 years old. Sounds good.
And then I'm just curious, like who is the guy? I feel like, you feel like a dwarf or a dwargar is the right call to make for the guy who owns this ranch, or do you feel like it's something like someone else who would be the owner of the ranch?
I think a dwarf sounds pretty good.
Yeah, dwargar, one of the underdark dwarves, a lady or a dude, because
Yeah.
I'm okay with either.
Ooh. Uh hmm.
I was thinking of Bonnie earlier from Red Dead Redemption, so it would be kind of nice to have like a bearded underdwarf lady who's like,
Yeah.
you know, okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, okay. There's a lot of kind of rivulets that flow throughout the Underdark. And it's fortunate that a lot of creatures down here are adept at swimming. You wouldn't think they are, but they are. A lot of smaller boat travel. And maybe it's because he's small. Maybe it's because he was able to blend in with some other creatures around, or, well, it's probably because he's a little small for his age. He was able to kind of sneak on to the back of some type of smaller barge. And just outside of the town, he kind of lets go in the water to let the barge continue. And instead of going to the dock, he kind of climbs up onto the bank and kind of shakes out, tries to wring out his. He can't do much because he's soaking wet, but,
Mm.
tries to wring out some stuff, trying to stay away from the general populace because things kind of went crazy back where he was from. He's a little weary to be around some other people right now.
And so he's come up on the outskirts of the town, and we're imagining the ranch is a little ways off, or is like on or not too far away, maybe from the location that he popped up
I'd
at.
say, yeah, I'd say kind of close to where he popped up at.
Okay.
Pops his head up, takes a look around a rocky crag every once in a while, trying to see. It's been a long day. He's a little tired, kind of starting to get hungry, thinking maybe he could find some place to hunker down for the night or something. So he's kind of looking around.
And about that time, there's the subtle vibrations and the sounds of like a bunch of things starting to head his way, and he's starting to hear some like calls of like yip yip yip, yeah, yo, yeah, and and some grumbling and stuff like that. And I like to think that Brolwyn Trolldust is this rather regal looking Dwargar lady. She's married, and in my setting, and maybe it is for other people's settings, but I like to imagine that matronly, married, well-off dwarven women grow their beards out because it's cool and awesome.
Yeah.
So she's rocking this full, elaborate, lustrous beard, and she's riding, yeah, get it. She's riding a bullet, which bellows low and loud, the vibrations through the ground as she's riding along. And maybe this is an early point when like her range is really starting to get up, but she doesn't quite have, but one or two ranch hands. And so there's like all these guinea pigs that are starting to come in because they're getting them into the pens. Like they've gone out and fed, and now they're trying to get them back into the pens to get them corralled so they can rest easy and stuff like that. And so, how does Thorsten react seeing like all this noise and all these little creatures that are starting to get in through the gates and get corralled into where their pens and stuff?
I think it's a time where, like, because when guinea pigs herd themselves, they'll form like lines. They don't just travel in a big group. They usually fall into a couple single file lines that are separate.
Mhm.
And then if one deviates, then they all kind of will deviate and then come back. So it's like he feels the rumbling. He's like, what the? And then he goes to look, and he just turns to look, and he sees the bullet, but suddenly is looking down at a mass of these little furry creatures. I'd imagine he's seen a bullet before,
Mhm.
not guinea pigs. So he's like, ah, and he like kind of backs up against the wall. And it's like, ah, and they like, I mean, they don't attack him, so he's, ah, ah. And like one of his tail is kind of out a little bit in the way
Mhm.
for a second. So like they'll come by, "Wee, wee, 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 boop, boop, boop," and like a couple of them hop over, and he's like, and he like moves his tail a little bit to see how they deviate and go around it and hop over it.
Yeah.
So he's like, he went through this moment of like a kid being scared and then being like, whoa, cool. And it's just messing with him a little.
Yeah, the bullet kind of bellows as Brolwyn pulls on the reins, and brrr, this thing bellows as it's being stopped, and she's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Good lad, good lad. Oh, it's okay, it's okay." She works to give, well, you know what? I'm staring at the can. Blackberry. She's like, "Oh, Blackberry, it's okay," and she gives the bullet a scratch. Gets this creature to settle, and she looks down, and she's like, "Oh, you're a you're a curious little lad. Where'd you come from now?" And she's watching as this kid is amused with all the guinea pigs. But she's like trying to like strike up a conversation, be friendly, as maybe like one or two ranch hands off to the sides, or a drow, and then we'll say like and a half drow are making their way over um, to come see the scene.
Yeah, I think he addresses her and he kind of, huh, and he like shrinks a little bit more up against the wall and he's like, nowhere. And then his eyes look to the river and then back to her. So it's someone to be like, I wasn't doing anything. Obviously looks at the thing that they were just at because he's still wet. So
Mhm.
he's like, nowhere.
Ah. Well, Troglodyte hadn't seen one of you in quite a while, and golly, come down these parts of the Underdark. Wow, we don't. Oh, and then she'll roll her insight check, and she notices like, oh, he's wet, he's by himself, he's scared or like unsure, and she's just kind of like,
Maybe got a couple bruises from
yeah.
like clearly he just went through something.
Yeah, and she's gonna soften. She'll be like, "Oh, Blackberry, hold still," and then she like calls over to like one of she calls the half drow to take like take Blackberry back into the barn and get him situated and so she comes down, so she's a little more on his level, and she's gonna be like, lad, are you all right? It seems like you've gone through some stuff. You're safe with me. It's okay."
The gesture out of the hand does kind of get him to flinch back a little bit, but he doesn't move. His hand does go to the pan flute that he's got on his waist. It's like, yeah, uh, just you know, uh, had to get out of town for a little bit
Hmm.
because of stuff.
I see. And then she'll take a beat and look over the demeanor, and she's not gonna push it yet, because she just met this kid, not wanting to get force him to tell his whole life story. She'll try and spin it to be like, you think you can help me with this gate? And she's gonna like, the guinea pigs are just about all in the pen of where they need to be corralled, and she's gonna be like, come on, yeah, you look strong. I'm pretty good myself, but I think you could do a better job than me. And she's gonna start making her way over to the gate to close it.
His chest kind of puffs up a little, like getting a little like positive reinforcement. He's like, okay, yeah. And thing about guinea pigs is if there's a leader, they'll follow it. So when he walks off
Hmm.
one direction, there's like not a bunch, but like a couple that follow into line behind him, and he's like, "Good." And he like keeps swiping his tail a little bit to try to get them to stop following him, but there's like one that keeps dodging it a little and like keeps following. He's like, okay, yeah,
They like you. Yeah,
yeah.
they know a natural when they see one.
What are they?
These are guinea pigs. Gotta This is
Those are
Freetown.
pigs?
Yeah, well, it's what they call them. It's what the common tongue calls them. In in Dwarvish, they would be, and she says the Dwarvish word, which sounds like harsh consonants and Klingon and whatever else. But she's like, yeah, the guinea pigs, is what they call them. We're here in Freetown, and she does the cinematic thing where she gestures to the wider town, and she's like, yeah, we got all kinds of folks here: Dorgars, Drow, half Drow, other bric-a-brac and riffraff that fall their way down from the surface, even a couple mind flayers, the illithids in the town, but the nice ones. They do the magic, or they've been separated from their brains and they're not bad folk anymore. But we're all just here trying to make a living, and you need a stable source of meat and protein, and the Trolldusts, we wanted greener mushroom pastures, as it were, and so we decided to start this ranch up. And my old man, my old husband, Thomar, he suffered a bad injury, so he can't do as much of the work. So that's why I have to do most of it, and I need some strapping young lads to help me do the work. You got to play. You stay with me. You get a bed. You'll get fed, and you'll have a clear bit of ceiling over your head if you stick with me.
He kind of takes a second to like look down at the guinea pig that keeps like nudging his tail, and he looks back to the river. You can kind of see like the damp earth from where his clawed feet were. And you also see, like, of course, you see all the little footprints of the other creatures. You see the drow. You don't see any other footprints like his. Doesn't see any others in the ground, but he kind of hesitates for a second, looks back at her, and he goes, I think I can help you with this gate. And he like kind of rolls his shoulders a little bit, and then and he like kind of got to give it a bit of elbow grease, but he's able to like kind of, I got just one sec, and it like gives, and he's gate. Yeah.
She gives a hearty chuckle and she approves, and she's like, yeah, I think you got a career here for you. Yeah, I think you're a good kid. What's your name? What might I hail you as, call you as?
Thorsten.
Thorsten. Ah, good lad. And she, gives him a nice slow pat on the shoulder, doesn't want to like alert him or anything like that, but come on, I think Thomar had some food up on the stove, and our work's done for the day, and I think they're all ready to be fed. We'd love to have you at the table.
Okay. And he like starts to follow. He's still got that one guinea pig that's behind him, and he like, instead of trying to shoo him away with the tail, he kind of like pats it with his tail a little bit, like he's giving him little butt pats. As he's like going, he's like, okay, I guess they're kind of cute. Weird but cute.
Oh, go on, go ahead, bring them in, more the merrier. You fatten them up that way too. The prize pig of the town before too long. And she gives a hearty chuckle at that. And what's the final thing that we see in the scene before it closes out? What do you think is in Thorsten's mind as this Dwargar bearded woman has invited him to stay at this place without so much as a second thought?
Yeah, I think he kind of like, he looks in and he sees like there is truly a wide variety of people that are coming into this table. Like, yeah, it's the drow and the half drow and it's her, but then there's like, maybe there's another mind flayer and there's like a couple other, and she's like, man, she wasn't kidding. And it was really a mix of a whole bunch of different people. And he kind of hovers on the outside of the table, like he hasn't quite sat down yet, but kind of gets this feeling of, well, I mean, there's lots of different people. Who's to say I can't be one of them, right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. There's like another couple guinea pigs that run in under his feet. He's like, and there's that one that still won't leave him alone. That's like, where he's like, kind of reaches down, picks it up because he doesn't really know what to do, but then it starts doing that little noise, and he's, okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're kind of cute. Kind of ugly in a cute way, I guess. Yeah. And he like kind of keeps that one and like sets it on his lap and like kind of pulls up to the one corner of the table and it nods. Might give one last look out a nearby window towards that craggy valley that leads down to the river, and he just kind of like turns his back to it a little bit to like look at other people as they're bringing out a dish. And he's like, "Wait, you eat them?" Because he just sees the guinea pig come out of the roast. He's like, "You eat?" He like kind of does a little protective hand over the guinea pig, like that's the one. He's like, "No, don't hurt Wilbur," type of deal. Gotta land on a funny note.
And scene. So yeah, we did it. We made it through random encounter. So what did you think it was like getting to be Thorsten in his flashback as opposed to like how we would meet him presently?
Oh, it was adorable. I loved it. I love playing a little angsty preteen boy. It was adorable. It's definitely making me want to draw this character now.
Yes.
Draw this character now.
Yes.
So I might need to. I wonder if I can move some things around in my schedule to be able to finish a sketch for this by the time the episode comes out.
Woohoo! That'd be great.
Because that would be kind of cool.
It would be, I would think. Yeah. So, so overall impressions of the podcast. Now that you're, now you're on it. You listened to it. That's one experience.
Yeah.
Now you're on it. So, how do you think it's been?
Oh, this has been great. Absolutely would come back and do it again. I gotta recommend. I know a couple people who would really enjoy this. So
I'm always up for more guests, and it is a delightful burden to have an overabundance of guests and recordings in the wings ready and waiting to go. So yeah, we've made it here to the final thoughts section of the show. So obviously, we'd love to hear all your feedback and critique and just experience and how you feel that your time on the show has been. But certainly, yeah, just want to leave it here to the end for you. So if there's any plugs or where can you be found on social media and any projects or things that we can be made aware of by the time this episode comes out in May. And then any other passions or causes that we need to be made aware of, feel free to let us know.
Yeah. Okay. So bit of a personal plug. You can find me on most social media under the handle BrittaJJ26. That's my username for X, for Blue Sky, for Instagram. I did have a TikTok at one point. I don't really update or do anything with it anymore. I think I may actually have it turned off currently. You can also find me on I'm also on Tumblr and the once upon a times of Tumblr. There aren't currently any projects that I have sitting in the wings. I'm constantly doing a lot of fan art and a lot of personal art on the side. So you'll probably be seeing a lot of those. I do know that Dice Throne does a lot of does their Kickstarters. So if you want to know more about what's coming up with Dice Throne, you can follow them on social media or even join their Discord server. That's where you can get a lot of their updates. I'm in that Discord server along with a bunch of others for Beacon and Critical Role, Dimension 20. And I mean, if you're in Los Angeles and go to do D&D stuff, you might find me at a couple of those at those places because I live and work in LA. So yeah.
There we go. Perfect. So awesome and amazing to have you as a guest. I thank you so much for saying yes and taking the time to spend this time making a wonderful NPC and just getting to know you a little bit better. And I feel like we would be fast friends. So in the spirit of that, I certainly want to, again, thank you for your time and making this episode magical. And I can't wait to have you back on this podcast, making even more interesting NPCs.
Thanks. Yeah. First time being on a podcast. So this was a real treat. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Overcast, or YouTube, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app or player of your choice. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram/Threads, Twitter/X, and Reddit by searching for Side KQ Podcast. You can also find our small Discord community as well online. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. And hey, if you'd like to hail the bard and send me a message, an email, you can do so by communicating with sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you leave a review on iTunes, 5 stars please, to help spread the word and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. As mentioned in the NPC creations section of the podcast, I do in fact have a Patreon for Sidekicks and Sidequests. If you love this podcast and what we're trying to do here, I would appreciate it if you would just go to the website, patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Modest, comfortable, wealthy, and aristocratic accommodations await, and we welcome all patrons to the Levitating Platter. Seriously, your financial support allows for this passion project to continue to invest in itself through the tools that will take our production to the next level, as well as provide more content for our patrons and the community at large. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you can.
Sidekicks and Sidequests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy.
Meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards.
Portions of the materials used are property of Wizards of the Coast.
Copyright Wizards of the Coast,
LLC.
Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.